Well, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us today.
That's fine.
So I wanted to start off by saying congratulations on the film. I've had a chance to sit down and watch it in a cinema, and it's an absolutely fantastic film, so congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm really thrilled that audience is, certainly in Australia and New Zealand, looking to see it on the big screen. It's really exciting. We weren't sure if we were going to get theatrical with the ongoing pandemic, but yeah, I'm thrilled that you saw it in the cinema, as it should be seen.
Definitely. How difficult is that for you as a filmmaker, bringing a movie out during a pandemic? Because I know so many filmmakers here in Australia last year, when we went through 8 months of lockdown, had their films go straight to VOD. How does that feel for you as a filmmaker, bringing out a movie during a pandemic?
We shot this movie 2018, and then we had quite a long post into 2019. Originally we were supposed to come out last May. That was our theatrical release date internationally, and obviously that didn't happen. It's kind of frustrating, but I guess, with perspective and in the grand scheme of, what some people have been through, it's small change. And I guess, streaming platforms are very much, they're with us now. It's the modern way of, absorbing content and watching movies. We have a captive audience. So I think the hiatus has been so long that we're just pleased that the film is out there, and that it can now have an opportunity to find its audience, whether that's on streaming platforms or, in countries where we're fortunate enough to have cinemas. I think the cinema photography from our DP, Chris Siegel, is beautiful, and, we always intended it to be seen on a big screen, but it's an imperfect situation, but you take what you can get. Ultimately, as storytellers, you just want to find an audience, so we're just pleased that the film is out there in some form.
Yeah. I wanted to start off right at the beginning. You're one of the screenwriters on this film as well. Where did the idea for the film first come about, and how much of it is actually based on a true story?
Well, the idea started with Eddie Izzard. He's kind of very much the architect of this project. So Eddie grew up, I think, for about 11 years as a child in a small town called Bexhill-on-Sea, a seaside town on the southeast coast of England. And in Bexhill Museum, he discovered, later in life, in the museum there was a blazer badge, a school blazer badge that dated back to the 1930s, and it was a blazer badge from a school called the Augusta Victoria College for Girls. And basically this was a finishing school for rich European girls from rich families who'd be sent to England to learn English, primarily to learn English. But by the 1930s, a lot of the students were German, and because they came from wealthy families, their families were members of the Nationalist Socialist Party, which effectively became the Nazis. And so there was this strange, fascinating anomaly, this kind of footnote in British kind of mid-century history, that there were these Nazi schoolgirls by the English seaside. This is true. The school was real. The Augusta Victoria College really did exist. There really was a governess called Miss Rockall, the same name as Judy Dench's character. Some of the girls, like for instance, Himmler's goddaughter attended the school. The Minister of Foreign Culture of the Nazis, von Ribbentrop, his daughter was at the school. So all these are facts, and this is true. So the foundation for a story was the school, and that it really did exist. And obviously, we kind of extrapolated a wrong man thriller story on top of that. So it's a marriage of our kind of love letters, the kind of movies that we loved growing up, these kind of wrong man thrillers of the 30s and 40s, and the school itself, and I guess all the sort of the civil rights implications that stem from that. Just this idea of like, who were these schools? What was this school? What was their experience of England at that time on the cusp of World War? And with some of the things that have been going on in the world recently, I mean, I guess you could argue that some of the uglier aspects of the 1930s are still with us today, in terms of the rise of the far right, in terms of all those kind of cross-border cultural race relation issues. And as Eddie says, lest we forget, let's not return to the 1950s, let's move forward to the 2030s. So it started with Eddie. He then embarked on a journey with actor and co-writer Kellen Jones, who I had previously worked with on a movie about Dylan Thomas called Set Fire to the Stars. Eddie and Kellen kind of incubated the project for about a year, and then I came on board, and then it sort of, we embarked on this other sort of chapter of the journey. So I was the third writer, and together the script went through many developments. So it was kind of, Kellen, I guess, was the linchpin in that Eddie had worked with Kellen on a BBC movie called Castles in the Sky, and I had history with Kellen, and I was looking to kind of continue my writing relationship with Kellen and work on the project. And I just loved that kind of, that mashup, that marriage between the factual, that this school really did exist, and it's such a fascinating period in our modern history, so it fits well.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. When Eddie and Kellen came to you with the idea, what was it that attracted you most to the project, and what made you decide that, yes, I want to direct this?
I guess the short three-word answer is Eddie and Kellen. I wanted to work with Kellen. Again, we're friends. We have this kind of soulmate shorthand and working together. Obviously, the prospect of working with Eddie was very attractive to me. I think, like a lot of people, I had this the same reaction to the school badge. The school badge is like the lodestone. That was the magnet that kind of pulls everybody in. And they see this badge, which has a Union Jack on one side and a Nazi flag on the other side. These two symbols that should never be together. There's apparently innocent-looking school badge. And I've said before, some of that when there's magic eye paint, you kind of look at it, and then on a second glance, you see the swastika, and you think that should not be there. So it was this kind of truth is stranger than fiction kind of backstory, and the fact that this school really did exist. I was fascinated by that. And then the idea of a pre-war thriller that kind of harked back to the 39 Steps and kind of Hitchcock and Wilson Brothers movies like Brighton Rock, and that kind of combination of sort of a seaside romance with a wrong man thriller in the run-up to World War II. So it had all those ingredients that, I was kind of fascinated by and drawn to. And I just felt that, I was really keen to be sort of the third amigo, if you will, in that creative triumvirate with Kellen and Eddie.
Yeah, one of the things that I said in my review that I loved about this film was the same thing that I loved about The Courier. We've all grown up with these war spy movies, but they always seem to take the James Bond kind of route where it's big action and things like that, and that's not always the case of how it was for these people. How important was that to you to make this film as natural as possible?
I think sort of my default setting as a writer, director, as a storyteller, and even as a film goer, I love character. I love character-driven story. And while we have a chase thriller, I guess, I was always mindful, as was Kellen and Eddie, that the stakes for Thomas Miller, Eddie's character, always had to come back to a basic human truth and character, and reminding the audience that he was fighting for the hearts and minds of these young teenage girls. On the surface, yes, you go, oh, they're young Nazi schoolgirls, but Thomas, Eddie's character, is reminding the audience they're just young adolescents on the cusp of young womanhood. They are having fascism thrust upon them. They didn't choose this. They are victims of circumstance, if you will. And left to their own devices, these are just teenage girls. And it's this idea that you have, a choice in life to fill young minds with love, or you can fill them with hate. And the choice you make defines the person you are. And the choice you make defines the world that you want to build for tomorrow. So the idea of a school teacher hero in that context was very attractive to us. And also, I think practical we weren't a big studio movie, so we knew there were limits in terms of action set pieces. And so I guess we were cutting our clock accordingly. And Kellen was afraid to play the striker, you know. And it's like, well, what are our strikers, you know? And it was Eddie, and it was Judy, and it was Kellen, and it was Jim Broadbent, and all our wonderful actors. Candy Austin, my production designer who I'd worked with before. I just think the patina and the look of the film together, working with Lucinda Wright, our costume designer, and Chris Seeger, our cinematographer. I think I lent into those aspects. I thought that was our USP, and that's what we could draw from. And yeah, I just love character-driven storytelling, and a lot of actors that goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah. Eddie is absolutely fantastic as Thomas. In what part of the writing process was it where you all decided that Eddie was Thomas?
From the get-go, there was never any discussion about it. It came, Eddie's been very eloquent talking about how, A-list actors create roles for themselves, and there was very much a project tailored to Eddie. This is a labour of love for Eddie and a passion project.
Yeah.
And this idea and everything that we loved about it orbited around Eddie playing Thomas. And I think by Eddie's own admission, Eddie may not be the obvious choice for this kind of role, in terms of a period spy thriller, a leading man in this period spy thriller, and that kind of casting against the grain appealed to us very much, and I thought that could be a virtue. So yeah, it was a list of one, it was always there.
Yeah, and having Jim Broadbent and Judy Dench in there as well, two of my favourite actors from over the years. What was it like to work with them, and what was that process like to get them involved with the film as well?
I guess we have Eddie to thank for Judy, because he'd worked with her on Victoria and Abdul, Stephen Frears' movie. He had this wonderful connection with Judy. Judy'd been a fan of Eddie for many years. She goes to see his stand-up live. She used to write messages on banana skins and send them backstage to him. She's just fantastic. And when he was making the movie, Victoria and Abdul, it's interesting because when Eddie was working with Kellen on Castles in the Sky, Kellen was telling Eddie about the process of making the Dylan Thomas movie. How he made this very kind of rootsy, homegrown, macro, lo-fi movie in a very kind of punk DIY way. We just kind of raised private finance and just did it. And Eddie was really fired up by that and said to Kellen, "Well, I've got this story I've always wanted to make about this girl who did X, Y, Z." And then some years later, when the film was kind of being developed, he was talking to Judy about it, and she was just so keen to get on board. She, like everyone, she was fascinated by the truth is strange in the fiction aspect of this. And I guess after Judy came to us, I guess Jim followed. It was just wonderful working with them, and we love the idea of kind of being a little playful with the audience in terms of an audience's perception of Judy Dench. I mean, the last thing she wants to be called is a national treasure, but I guess that is how global audiences kind of see her, and we feel maybe that we've grown up with Judy Dench, and there's an affinity to her, and I guess seeing her play a character who is flirting around the margins of fascism and making some suspect choices in terms of Nazism and supporting Hitler, and how that character articulates that and apologizes for that. That was very interesting to us. I don't think there was another actor who could sort of marry the aspects that are in the script with the relationship they have with the audience, other than Judi Dench. And to see, Judy as Miss Recall doing the Nazi Sieg Heil, we were aware that it was kind of a very potent image in terms of Judy specifically playing that role. And I think that aspect of playing against the grain appealed to her. But we had some wonderful actors in this, not least the German girls as well, who were just this extraordinary these 6 European girls who were just marvelous. And I felt, I loved the demographic in the movie of Jim and Judy and Eddie with this vibrant, bright, young European talent.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. I was going to say that we shouldn't let the interview go without talking about the talented young actresses playing the other roles. Tell us a little bit about how you cast them, because they were absolutely perfect in their roles.
Oh, thank you. I'm really glad you feel that way. We always knew we wanted to cast German actresses. So I think I saw, through our casting director, Colin Jones in London, I saw about 70, I think. It was 70, at least 70 young German actresses auditioned on tape. And then it's a process of elimination, and I had like my favorite kind of 25, and then my favorite dozen. And then I think when it was like the favorite 10 or the favorite dozen, we went to Berlin. I spent a day or two just screen testing on an audition in our favorites. And not just auditions, but just talking to them and getting a sense of their personalities. Because it wasn't about just landing each individual role. They had to work as a gang, they had to work as a group. I had to find, who was the classroom clown, who was the classroom princess, who was kind of, the alpha leader, and who was the outsider at the back of the classroom, which is Gretel, of course. And so I got them to kind of cross-pollinate kind of roles, and so some of them auditioned for, like, Maria Dragas, who plays Astrid, I think she read for Gretel. Tijan Marai, who plays Gretel, she read for a couple of the other girls as well. And it was just trying to balance that light and shade. But yeah, it was a very productive time we had in Berlin. And I knew, yes, Judy, yes, Eddie, yes, Jim. And I knew that the audience would come for Judy and Jim. But I would like to think that one of the take-homes that the audience might have is that, they are like wowed by this incredible European talent, It's a little bit like Dead Poets Society. I think audiences went to see Robert Williams, then they came away going, wow, who's this Ethan Hawke guy? He's amazing. And it's kind of that, and I kind of feel they are the hearts of the story, because they are what Thomas Miller is fighting for.
Yeah, you mentioned the cinematography before as well, but location plays a very big part of this film. I know the scene with Thomas running from the police on the pier is going to stay with me for a long time, and some of the stunning coastal shots that you got as well. How important was location for you with this film?
Oh, it's absolutely key, and I think with any sort of wrongman thriller, you're aware that there is a sort of figure in a landscape motif to that. We made, I would say, 90% of the movie in Wales. We had Welsh funding, so our story is set in the southeast coast of England, but we filmed in Wales. Although at the very end of our shoot, we did go to Bexley and Eastbourne. So the scenes you see of Eddie being chased along cliff tops and along the beach by the police, they were filmed in and around Bexley and Eastbourne, where he grew up. But most of our locations were in Wales, and yeah, it was a very we had a very bespoke shot to find it in a post-Victorian architecture that would still be present around pre-war 1930s. Both myself and Kellen are Welsh. Eddie grew up in Wales. I've worked in Wales quite a lot. It's got a wonderful infrastructure, and the locations palette is really varied and incredible, and I guess for filmmakers. And I think we also lucked out in that when we made the movie, I think the sort of the weather gods kind of shone down on us, and we had this wonderful, beautiful summer, which added this beautiful sort of production layer, and it really kind of supported the story, because we were telling the story of sort of the last summer before war broke out, the last childhood summer. Jim Broadbent has a line, childhood is made of a few summers, and the fact that this film had this sort of wonderful, romantic, kind of almost nostalgic, I guess, sort of last summer of England kind of looked good. It was exactly what we wanted.
Yeah. Well, Andy, I know we've got to wrap up very, very quickly, but I just wanted to say before I go, again, congratulations on the film, and is there anything you would like to say to our listeners and our readers out there before they head into the cinemas to watch this amazing film?
Well, I'm just thrilled that audiences in Australia and New Zealand are getting a chance to see this movie on the big screen. I guess just come to it with brand new eyes and keep your minds open. And, as Eddie always says, it's, yes, we want to entertain, and yes, there is a thriller story in a period context, But lest we forget from history, let's not make the same mistakes from history. Let's learn from the history books, and and I think that if there is a kind of deeper message in the film, it is that it is holding up to merit not only some of the things that were going on in the past, but specifically some of the things that are going on today. And so through that kind of front of house kind of entertainment story, especially with the younger audiences, I guess, just want to say, this is what happened, this is what can happen, and let's not make those same mistakes again. And I hope everyone enjoys the movie. We're very proud of it.
Definitely. Well, Andy, thank you so much for chatting to us today. It's been an absolute honour chatting to you, and we wish you all the best of luck with your next project.
Oh, thank you, David. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Not a problem, mate. I'll let you go. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, you too. Okay, bye now. Thank you.